All right, folks, this is Pete Downing. Welcome to another XenTegra Webinar Wednesdays. I got a great topic and a great panel this week, and it kicks off my month of the year in review. So my first vendor kicking us off is going to be IGEL with my awesome panel of guests today. Welcome, everybody. I'm excited. We got a lot of great stuff coming in the month of December, but more importantly, we have a great panel today. So I'm going to go around the horn and introduce my panel. So the first person I'd like to introduce, and it's funny, Doug, I'm on this side, you're on the other side now, so I'm interviewing you. So it's a big change, right? So Doug Brown, give yourself a quick intro and what you've been doing.
Yeah, my name's Doug Brown. I run the IGEL community for IGEL. I've been with the company, will be for now 4 years in January, which is amazing. I'm an old Citrix guy from back in the 90s. Yeah, I've been doing this stuff for a long time. So Pete, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to it. It's always fun to talk with Chris and yourself, and of course Carl.
Yeah, thanks, Doug, for joining
us.
And
we can't leave out Phil too. I don't see Phil, so.
All right, next up we got Carl Gersh. Carl, you want to give yourself a quick intro besides being a DJ?
There we go. Yeah, internet DJ, so a very specialized area. So my name is Carl Gersh. I am the Senior Director of Marketing at IGEL. Prior to that, I was with a solution provider, and then before that, like some others on the panel, I was a part of the Citrix family. I was a Citrite, as they call them. Yeah. So I've been working in EUC for the better part of probably 15 years or so.
Yeah, so we're doing videos today, and one of the things I hate about GoToWebinars, you can't have a virtual background, so that's why I'm going to Zoom now. But behind me, I got a bunch of Citrite shirts. So if anybody on this call wants a Citrite shirt, let me know.
I want a Citrite shirt. I'm a Citrite.
All right. All right. Next up, we got Chris, IT Baller Feeney. So Chris, give yourself a quick intro in our long history together.
Yeah, thanks, Pete, for having us. It's awesome. Thinking back on this year, like how much has really happened. But yeah, I've been with IGEL for just about 2.5 years. Before that, I spent over a decade of my time with a company called Imprivata. Some of you may know it, and learning about EUC in that realm, particularly in healthcare. And that's where I met Pete. He encouraged me to get out of the field and go into product management at one point. I hated it before it. Later. No, I'm just kidding, but learned a lot in that, and then it's been a great friendship since, so glad to be a part of today. And I'm here, I support the channel. It's my new role here within IGEL, and I'm excited to be here today. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Chris. All right, next we got Megan Hansen, who a lot of you hopefully know Megan at this point. Megan works on my team, but Megan, you want to give a quick intro?
Hey everybody, my name is Megan Hansen. I've probably spoken with many of you or emailed back and forth with many of you, and it's great to be on today, and I look forward to it.
All right, and then finally, we got Channel Mastermind, Phil Eden. So Phil, give yourself a quick intro. Phil and I go way back too. Everybody on this call, we all go way back.
Good afternoon, everyone. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming out and listening to us this afternoon. Again, my name is Phil Eden. I'm the Senior Director of Channels at IGEL. Coming up on my 4th year now, believe it or not, Doug Brown. I see you smiling there. But as Pete mentioned, we have a long history together, even formerly alumni at our last gigs at Res, now Avanti Software. So spent my entire career in EUC, in particular working with channel partners, elite partners like XenTegra. XenTegra was Partner of the Year 2019 and is in the running for 2020. So you guys are in good hands here. I'm looking forward to a really excellent discussion this afternoon. So thanks for having me, and thanks for joining us today.
All right, and thanks everybody for joining. So again, we encourage questions in the GoToWebinar. There's the Q&A dialogue. For those who joined us week over week, you know the drill. For anybody that's net new, always ask questions. If you have one, it will add to the conversation today. So we look forward to any and all questions. And our agenda is quite simple today. We're gonna have a little overview on the year in review with IGEL, and Carl's gonna take us through a little recap of how IGEL did this year. And then I'm gonna take control, and we're gonna talk about some juicy topics and get the whole panel involved. So I'm excited. But before we do, head over to events.XenTegra.com. We have a lot of great events ending the year this year, so check them out. And then we're going to be launching the new schedule in the next few weeks, so keep an eye out for that. We got a lot of new things we're working on. I'm very busy trying to create some new curriculums and different webinar series. Parallel to that, we got podcast.XenTegra.com. Actually, it's fun. We're going to be launching a new podcast with IGEL. Andy, our founder and CEO, loves to do podcasts, so he's been slowly building out a podcast library, and been inspired by our friend Doug here, who is the big podcaster himself in the past and currently, right, Doug? So you can continue to do podcasts, but we enjoy them, and we're building out our library. So exciting. Webinars.XenTegra.com. So like I said, IGEL's kicking us off for the year in review. In December, we got 2 more great guests. Next week, we got Nutanix and Steve Kaplan, who's our ROI TCO mastermind. Great guy. I can't wait to have him on next week. And then finally, we're end capping with Brian Madden and VMware. So that's going to be a fun conversation. And in January, we're going to do a looking out in 2021. So watch for that series coming out. And I'm excited to keep this going into 2021. And yes, everybody who joins today, everybody gets a $20 Grubhub credit. Please be nice to Megan. She reaches out to get some more information. We do require a business email, and we do require that you actually work in IT, and you can't be a partner because obviously conflict of interest. So please be nice. All right, today's giveaways. We got a lot of great giveaways. Now I'm feeling generous this month, so I'm going to be doing giveaways every webinar and every event. So the first thing we're going to give away is a Yeti cooler. Now, we're not cheaping out here. We're going to give the nice one, the M30 soft cooler, which is the magnetic opening. It's really nice. If you have one, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, get ready. Now, a little asterisk here. We got to work with supply chain. Supply chain, as we know, has been an issue. So whoever wins today, we might have a little delay getting it to you. So just keep that in mind. Next, we have our XenTegra Yetis. So a winner will get to pick a Yeti of their choice. We got the low baller, the wine option, or your coffee option. So you get to pick one, and we'll send you one. We'll give away a couple XenTegra hats, a couple IGEL hats that I have laying around here, and a couple IGEL custom t-shirts that we have laying around. So great swag here. I'll be contacting the winners post-session, so keep an eye on your email. As you know, we gave away some cool stuff in November. We gave the option of an iPhone or Galaxy, a XenTegra North Face soft shell jacket, and then finally a XenTegra hat. And the winners last month, and I'll reach out to you today if you're not on, prize the iPhone or Galaxy is Kevin Jones. Prize number 2 is Dennis Beach, and the prize number 3 is Justin Caldwell. So I'll be reaching out to you guys if you're not on the call today. So congrats to my prize drawers last month. All right, and then finally, bronco.XenTegra.com. Phil and I are actually talking about a way we can twine IGEL into this. So watch out early next year. We're going to be doing some fun stuff. I got some ideas, Phil, so I'll be reaching out. All right, as you guys know, I like to do polls. So if you're new to our webinar, we always ask a lot of different polls just to get the audience involved. So I have some fun polling questions. In the first poll, just to get the audience warmed up, is my enterprise is an IGEL customer today? So I put yes, love this solution, no, tell me more, and NA, meaning, hey, you're a partner or you're an employee if you don't want to answer. Now, if you're on the web version of GoToWebinar, you have to full screen it to see the poll. Sorry, I can't control that. And one of the many reasons why I'm actually looking at Zoom webinar now. So I'll give this a couple seconds to let you guys answer this. This gives us great anecdotes for our conversation later on. And again, one other thing is that these are anonymous. Other folks can't see your answers, so no worries. No names or anything is displayed in the polling results. All right, last call for clicks, going once, twice, and final call. All right, so we got a lot of no customers, guys. So we got our work cut out for us today. So I look forward to educating those who are not IGEL customers on the value of IGEL indirectly. But if you want to follow up and get a deeper demo, you got myself, Chris, and others that we can jump on and definitely demo the solutions. All right, next question. My enterprise currently uses thin devices. And Doug, I know you like the term device too. I don't like calling them clients anymore. But do you use a thin device? Now, I'm limited on the answer, so I had to kind of bundle Wise and HP together. And again, just more to just let us know, hey, what's the makeup look like of the audience? So give this a couple seconds. And if you're, partner or XenTegra or IGEL employee, no worries, don't answer. Again, we just like getting these stats. All right, last call for clicks, going once, going twice, and final call. All right, so we got a little spread here, but a lot of none in production. So maybe we'll change that with our conversation on why Windows on the endpoint later on. I'm excited to have that conversation, Doug and team. But I think the big thing you got to think about is the management costs, et cetera. So looking forward to that conversation. Let's talk about. I am part of the IGEL community today, and if you're not, you definitely want to get a part of this great community. And I'll put a link up in the chat as we get going today. Definitely check it out. Doug, how many members do you have today?
We're up to 5,000. I'll tell you. Hold on. 5,191.
Nice. And is it fair to say, yeah, it's about IGEL, but there's a lot of cool stuff covered in the community as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely the IGEL community, but we do talk about, if anybody has any questions, there's always somebody wants to answer or, chat about it. So one of the feedback I get that I love the most is they say, we join and then they're surprised that they can really ask about anything or they find content related to anything. So it's a very lively EUC community, not just an IGEL community.
Yeah. All right, so we got a lot of folks that are not members, but definitely I'll put the link up, head over and join. For those that are members, awesome. I could call out a few folks on the call, but I won't embarrass you today. And next question. My enterprise currently uses an end user compute solution today, product today. Pick the one you primarily use. So, yeah, you might use one or two, but pick your primary. And we might be able to guess who the top's going to be of the pile here, but I just like putting this out there to see the different stats on what's, where the trends are, what's growing. And, I can compare this over other times I've asked it, but it's interesting to see the answers as they come in. All right, so last call, and this is good market data for IGEL as well on something they're working on. So, all right, last call for clicks, going once, going twice, and final call. So we could have probably guessed that Citrix was going to be top of the pile, but you still got a good showing of Microsoft RDS, VMware Horizon, and a lot of people in the none bucket. So it'd be interesting to see how you're dealing with remote work if you're in the none bucket. All right.
Wonder if that other is WVD?
Yeah, maybe, but here's a question on WVD. So my enterprise is considering or using Microsoft WVD. Now, hey, if you don't know what it is, say, what is WVD? But it's all over the place. We're going to touch upon it a little bit today. But if you're looking at WVD or you're looking at piloting WVD, let us know. There's ways to get dollars towards your pilot. Microsoft launches incentives every quarter, so you're not piloting it on your dime, and XenTegra can help you. And then we can also help you pick the right endpoint scenario, because let's face it, without a good endpoint, you don't have a good experience. So that's something that I truly believe in, is user experience matters. All right, last call for clicks, going once, twice, and final call. All right, so we got a lot of folks actually testing and using. Pretty impressive, 23%. You got people who'd like to pilot it, but a lot of no's and not on the radar. So, again, be interesting to couple this data once I see the back end on, who answered no versus who's using Citrix, right? And one of the things I'll say is if you're using Citrix is a darn good control plane for WVD.
Hey, Pete, I got an update today on the theme, I guess, for IGEL is innovation this year. So I could share something that came out today with regard to our integration with WVD.
All right, cool. All right, final question, and then we're going to have some fun. My enterprise has a remote worker strategy for the foreseeable future. So, hey, this year was very interesting and forced us to essentially work remotely. Is that going to stay in place if things start freeing up? And so, put the best answer you think. You might not be the decision maker, but from your purview, what you think your enterprise is going to be doing, especially because, IT is at the crux of all this, right? So we'll give this a couple seconds to get answers in. And
hey, Pete, just real quick on this one. I mean, I assume that you're asking, if there'd be some element of remote work, not that they'll be remote 100% of the time.
Yeah, yep. All right, last call for clicks, going once, twice, and final call. So we pretty even spread at the top here. A lot of folks between, I'll say 50% and 100% bucket here. And what's interesting is, will that persist into 2021? And we'll see, right? Now, anybody in the none bucket, I'm going to guess you're in some line of work, whether it's retail, first responders, you're in IT in a healthcare organization. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, but even there, you could potentially work remotely if you're not the primary care doc or a nurse, et cetera, right? So interesting stats here. All right, so thanks for having fun with us. It just helps us get some good data on the table so we can refer to it. If you're not following XenTegra and IGEL on social media, please do. A lot of great areas to get content. Again, join the IGEL community. I'll put a link up as soon as I'm able to right click and paste, and I'll get that link up posted ASAP. And yeah, give us a good follow. So let's, without further ado, I'm going to pass the baton over to Carl, and Carl's going to take us through kind of the year in review, and then we're going to have a little fun having some conversation around some of the juicy topics that I want to get Doug pulled into, and we'll have a lot of fun, and I'm sure we'll get a lot of cool conversations going as Carl presents. So Carl, over to you, buddy.
All right, let me get my, here we go. All right, so let's talk about the year in review. I mean, remarkable year, 2020, I think so. I saw this cartoon, we've kind of passed around within IGEL. We were talking about digital transformation. I think it's been a term that's been bandied about for the past few years. I like this because I think it did speak a bit to sort of organizations who were putting off, hold on, sorry about that, digital transformation. So I think COVID kind of came in like a wrecking ball, as Miley Cyrus said, and I think changed a lot of things to a lot of companies in terms of how they're looking at it. Look, we just saw it in the last poll, that only 7% of organizations are not looking at having people work remotely in some capacity. So for IGEL, when we talk about things that changed for us, I think, our big announcement, or one of our big things in 2020 was the release of 11.4 of our operating system. And that brought with it a host of changes. And I'm not going to bore everyone with a lot of details on this, but, it was an architecture update. We had increased support for unified communications. We're all Zooming, GoToMeeting, webinaring and whatnot. We updated the support for clients, including WVD, which I think Chris wants to talk about a bit. Obviously, security, top concern as people work remote, right? How do we provide great security? And then partner integrations. I'll talk in a sec. We launched a new partner, ecosystem partner program. And then we added new features and continue to expand our hardware support. So, 11.4, I think it's up to version 2.40 is the exact version right now. A lot of changes for IGEL, with our OS, a lot of positive changes. And again, that Windows WVD support was one of those big ones. In addition, though, I mentioned, the ecosystem, right? So IGEL is, a lot of people say they didn't really know IGEL. So we are an operating system. We're an endpoint operating system. And I think, if you've been working in technology, it's a pretty common piece of technology, right? Microsoft started the endpoint operating system market back in the early 80s. But and the focus for IGEL is all about, an operating system for cloud workspaces. So we focus on the operating system being, manageable. We focus on being secure, but we didn't skimp out as it relates to making sure that the operating system had those connectors to key ecosystem, key other technologies that you need to be effective. So obviously, cloud workspaces, regardless of which workspace to which you want to connect, be it Citrix, as most of the audience is connecting, VMware, WVD, Tax Frame, you name it. We've got that client support built in there. Same thing with as it relates to, as I said, unified communication. So you want to use Zoom, Teams, no problem. We've got that taken care of. And again, as people working remote and management is a key element, having access to those having built-in access to those analytics tools, things like lakeside control and so on and so forth is important. So we have over 100 companies in the IGEL Ready program. The Ready program launched this year. We'd always had those ecosystem partners. We formalized the process, and the IGEL Ready program means that these are technologies that have been tested that come out of the box ready to work with IGEL. One of the cool things in 11.4 though is when you install the OS, you don't have to install all the connectors. You can pick and choose which connectors you want to install. So we give you some flexibility there. But if your team is using Teams with Sennheiser headsets, the good news is you've got the drivers all built into the IGEL OS to be successful with that deployment. So there's a lot of work went into the Ready program. We've got a great team behind that, and the ecosystem partners that have been really supportive of it, and we see more joining every day. We also understood that a lot of companies were deploying IGEL internally in 2019 or pre-2020, I should say, before the murder hornet showed up on the scene in January. And we forgot about the murder hornets, right? I mean, I felt like they,
Yeah, I thought
any
it was the
other
flying
year,
monkeys from the Wizard of Oz. I haven't
right?
They
seen
were so overshadowed, weren't they?
They really were. They need better hype guy or something like that. But murder hornets in January. But a lot of folks saying, hey, we got IGEL, we got these devices on people's desktops. I guess we could always, option A is, send a memo out saying, hey, here's how you unplug your device and take it home. I think if anyone's ever worked in support, that probably gives you chills just thinking about the support nightmare that would bring about. So we have a product called the UD Pocket. It is the IGEL operating system on a USB key. I happen to have one right here. I'd show you the box because the device itself is teeny tiny. So people were saying, hey, customers are asking, can we take advantage of this UD Pocket? We own, IGEL already. So we put together a work from home kit, which essentially included a UD Pocket. Oh, there we go. Pete's got one. The size of a thumbnail, they say. It's probably true. I guess it depends on the size of your thumb. We also included the management license. We included something called ICG, which allows you to manage devices over the internet, including maintenance and everything like that, and then marked it all down 50% off, just to make it easy to make that transition. The UD Pocket, I think, is really unique. We've seen a lot of customers embrace that, again, because if you want to take advantage of the compute device in people's homes, on the one hand, it's good because it saves you some budget. On the other hand, it's bad for like every other reason, right? Security, management, uniformity, patching, the list goes on and on. The UD Pocket, you boot right from that USB. It doesn't matter what's on the hard drive. So the UD Pocket was a great solution for enabling a remote workforce to be able to take advantage of those devices that are out there in the field without introducing your network, your enterprise to God knows what's on those devices. And humorously, we actually were a winner. Citrix had a video contest, talking about made open to Citrix compatible, Citrix ready partners. And IGEL won. We did a video in conjunction with one of our customers, guys over in Pittsburgh Mercy Healthcare, and we called it "Users of Dirty Endpoints." And it really is just a sort of humorous look at what happens when you've got people working from home from God knows what device. So if you have a chance, mosey on over, check out that video, have a laugh, overall. But the UD Pocket, again, was very popular. We made it very easy, from a sales standpoint for people to take advantage of that. And then for marketing, right, there is near and dear to my heart. We've been running a campaign all year called Workspace Cool Place. It was our promotional campaign. And essentially what it meant was that, 2 lucky customers were going to get a $20,000 home office makeover. So you enter the contest. You can still enter. Just go to igel.com/workspacecoolplace, or you can just go to workspacecoolplace.com and enter. We'll do another drawing later on this month. But we did a drawing earlier for existing customers, and a gentleman from eBay has won, and we're in the process of redoing his home office, and it's going swimmingly. So if you've not had a chance to enter the contest, I urge you to do so. No purchase necessary. Just go to workspacecoolplace.com, enter in. We'll do a quick demo of IGEL for you. We'll even send you probably a free UD Pocket if you'd like. And you'd be entered to win. And I think last year we gave away a car, and I think the winning entry came in November. So entering late is not necessarily a bad thing. So, again, I think from a product standpoint, we put out a product that, we put out a revision of our product that worked very well, and that helped customers make that transition to remote work. The UD Pocket, met a very unique need for customers trying to take advantage of devices that were home or repurposing old devices. And then from a sales perspective, we provided some sales promotions to reduce the cost of taking advantage of IGEL. And for marketing, we tried to put together a pretty cool marketing program as well. So I think like at a very, very high level, those would be some of the things that I think IGEL did this year. Nothing to address those murder hornets. Although I guess if you stay inside, you're probably safe. But to address the COVID disruption.
My office needs a makeover. I gotta get a wardrobe for all these T-shirts I got. So
there you go. There you go.
That's what this is. It's a closet. IKEA.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. One thing on the back end of your marketing information, Carl, was at the beginning of this year, January, we had our big Disrupt conference. We had one in Nashville, Tennessee, at the Gaylord. A week or so later, we had one in Munich, and that was, and just before that, we had Citrix Summit, and I want to say those were the last in-person conferences that I attended. And then, of course, February came and things started getting canceled. IGEL pivoted, and a lot of companies did, and we actually took that Disrupt conference online. And we had 2 versions of that, one in June here in the States, and then there was another one in September for the EMEA European market. All of those presentations, including a lot of what Carl went through, is available at igel.com. We have a Disrupt Hub site. So if you want to learn more, I think the URL, I'm not sure if I can paste it, but you're welcome to check it out. The recorded presentation is a little short, probably 20, 30-minute presentations available there. And there's obviously for Doug's group there at the IGEL community. Just real quick, Doug, how many new members did you see increased since January, or maybe really since maybe middle of February, March, when things began to shut down?
Yeah, it was quite interesting because the conferences disappeared, right? Like you mentioned, the last time I went somewhere was the end of February. I went up to Nottingham, and I went there because I didn't believe Nottingham was the real city. I thought it was where Robin Hood was from, and so I was like, well, I got to visit this place, right? It's actually a really neat city, by the way, and I didn't know it's real. 2,494 people joined this year, which is 73% growth over last year. And last year's growth was huge. In fact, coming into 2020, I was hoping we would grow, but I didn't know by how much because of the fact that last year we grew at such a, huge rate. What's really fascinating about the community is we've had over 100,000 messages posted so far this year. It took us 2.5 years to post 100,000 messages, and we did that this year in 10 months. So, I mean, it's been really active, and a lot of that contributes back to the fact that we're not anywhere else, right?
Well, also it's probably because, I mean, look, this year there was a lot of challenges and people had to accelerate their plans, right? So
Of
the
course.
community, if you've got a question, you can go and obviously work through vendors. But I mean, if you've got a question, I find that the community you've developed, Doug, is a great resource overall. I mean, you've got some really, really smart people who've done it numerous times participating there. So,
It's
I mean,
also, Jed likes to
do, right? I mean, because people are just, they build stuff.
Jed likes to told me once, and I love it, so I always quote him on it. People like to self-medicate, right? We don't go to the doctor, we go to the pharmacy or the 7-Eleven and buy whatever we can get our hands on to try to cure whatever else we have. And especially techies, the last thing a techie wants to do is call support. I actually read an interesting stat that said something like 60% of the people, no matter what vertical you're in, would rather clean their toilet for 30 minutes than call support. Yeah, I mean, that's a very interesting stat, right? But it's totally true. If I gave you a grill and you had troubles, the last thing you're going to do is actually call support. The first thing you're going to do is Google it. Second thing you're going to do is go start clicking around. Oh, there's a community. Let me do this. Well, let me ask somebody. Let me call somebody that might have the same grill. The last thing they're going to do is call support. And it's no offense to support, right? You could have the best support in the world. Still, nobody really wants to call there. So, there's a lot of reasons why there's growth, right? COVID definitely impacted that.
Yeah, no, I would concur. So, I mean, look, we in as much as I saw there were a lot of people that don't know IGEL, just as a little bit of background, right? We talked about, I mean, this year the world changed. And really the change that happened this year was an acceleration of trends that we've been seeing, over the past, 5 to 10 years. And I think one of the things I'd love for us to talk about today is we look, we're kind of wrapping up 2020, we'll move into 2021. And if anyone thinks that the way things are today is going to persist, it's probably inaccurate, right? The pendulum has swung one way due to external forces. The question is that after a certain period of time of us all working in this manner, I don't think we're going to then, go all the way back to everyone working in offices again either, right? And that was sort of what I know from my time at Citrix, there's so many different terms we used for it. I think at one point we called it like time slicing or life slicing, where you were able to intermingle work and your life and find better balance. And this slide, this idea of the world changing, I mean, I like to take it a further step back, and Doug knows this because we talk a lot about, technology and history of technology. But, I mentioned earlier, IGEL is an operating system. And I always think it's funny that operating systems are a product. I've always found it funny because operating systems are such a weird type of piece of software to sell as a product. And I give great credit to Microsoft. I mean, for the good and bad they've done. the vision they had back in 81 to take this piece of code that people don't really actually interface with, right? An operating system at its core is really a set of code that allows applications to interact with underlying hardware. And they realized that there was a market for it, right? They realized that they could put it in a box and sell it as a product, and they did that, and they've been widely successful on building off of that. In 95 they did something else that's pretty remarkable. I feel like the 81, everyone kind of is like, all right, that's really ancient history. But 95 doesn't feel like ancient history to me because I was there. And Microsoft put out what they call Windows 95, which included the operating system, and then they essentially they fused into it the windowing user interface. And if I say to someone on the street today, I was pull someone off the street today, not that there's anyone on the street because they're all wearing masks and whatnot, but and I said, hey, what's an operating system? Probably what they would describe, right, is they're going to describe icons, right? They're going to describe a start menu, right? They're going to describe all those elements that they interface with as part of the windowing system. And I'm going to, instead of saying windowing system, which is a mouthful, I'm going to call it workspace, although they weren't calling it that back then. But essentially, Microsoft said, hey, we're going to bolt on that workspace. It is now inexorably tied to the operating system. And again, if you were working in technology in 95, as I was, or you were just an enthusiast back then, people were pissed. There was a lot of nerd rage, as they call it, around that, because we were like, no, don't mush your workspace into my operating system. I want a command line. But Microsoft didn't see it that way, and they made the two of them connected, and that was the future. Now no one's buying operating systems that give command lines, well, that's not true, Linux. But workspace. And then that was like a good 30-year stretch, right? 95 up until around 2019. That's what we were all used to. But in 2019, Microsoft did something that I think we'll look back on later on and see is equally remarkable, which was they then took those two things and split them apart again, essentially. And they said, we're going to take this workspace that you're used to, and we're going to move it to the cloud. And there's a lot of benefits when the workspace goes to the cloud, right? You have universal access, you can across multiple devices. There's greater security and so on and so forth. So they with WVD, it's exciting. It's a really remarkable product. But it sort of raises a question that if I'm going to move my workspace to the cloud, then what do I want to run on the endpoint? And if it's an operating system that includes a workspace on your endpoint, so then you can access a workspace in the cloud, essentially, I got a slide here, I think, right ahead. It feels kind of like this, right? This is like people say, what's IGEL about? Why is IGEL relevant? I joined IGEL at the beginning of the year and very pointedly, right? I pestered Jed and hung out with Doug and did what I could do to get to IGEL, because I realized that if we move to this idea of a cloud workspace, which I believe that we will, because the benefits are vast, then what's going to run? What is that operating system for the endpoint? And again, I would urge you that while we're all used to the operating system we've been using, this fat client we've been using for the last 30 years, it is not the operating system that you should be using when we're going to cloud workspaces. It's one of the reasons I think, and be interested in other perspectives on this, but Microsoft kept trying to put out Windows phones. They kept trying to put Windows on the phone, and they didn't quite get it. And Apple and Google realized that the OS on the phone had to be different, a different experience, a different sort of metaphor than the device. And I think it's one of the reasons why we're not seeing a lot of Microsoft phones out there anymore. But we see the proliferation of Android devices and iOS devices for the same thing, right? You don't want a big bulky start menu driven, again, if anyone used a Windows phone or remembers Windows CE, which we used to call Wince, because that's what it felt like when you used it, right? They realized that metaphor Microsoft had developed and cultivated on the desktop didn't work for mobile devices that were connected. And that's going to be true, I think, of all the other endpoints. But Doug, what do you think, man?
Yeah, Doug, I got it. Yeah, just Doug, feel free. I'll comment in a second.
Chris, please. No, Chris, please.
Well, going on that phone thing, right? I mean, I'll never forget when I held off on the touch experience with iOS up until my BlackBerry couldn't pull up Google Maps fast enough while we were in New Orleans trying to navigate to a customer meeting. And the sales rep had a new iPhone, and Google Maps came up in 2 seconds. And I was like, okay, I'm going back home, and I'm just gonna get away from this trackball thing. And so the user experience certainly matters, certainly the speed, and I think Apple certainly got that and has continued to. If you're talking to somebody that's an Android, they love the ability to customize and make it their own, right? Apple, not so much, right? I mean, it's a sort of a lockdown ecosystem, I guess. Where does IGEL sort of fall in that user experience? I mean, you can customize the operating system to make it look like Windows for the end user if they're really, really tied to that look and feel. They may not even know it's Windows, but you can make it look like it, or you can make it look like an Apple device. Really, there's a ton of customization on the IGEL community. There was even a contest, I think, back in 2018 to come up with the most beautiful skin to look, change how IGEL looks. And that kind of comes into adoption, right? When a user gets an IGEL device for the first time, I saw this when I was covering federal, you got to look, and certainly in healthcare, when I was there, if you're looking at somebody who went to school and they're focused on, being the best, doctor or nurse or lawyer, they're not really a technologist, they use it, but keep it simple. And so if they had been using, let's take a Teradici device, for example, and they had that familiar look and feel experience, and then you swap it out with a new thing and it looks completely different, you got to retrain them. IGEL, we could make it such that it looks just like what they had if they're still using VMware for this matter. Or you just, completely customize it so that when they switch to a new way of working, the user adoption doesn't suffer because the user experience is they're struggling with it. And so that's a really key thing about IGEL, is that we have a lot of that customization ability. And as you're seeing here, right? I mean, I've tried multiple smartwatches and I've kind of fallen down on Garmin. I've held off on the Apple iPhone for different iWatch for different reasons, but I love my Garmin for different reasons. Somebody else might. What do you got there, Pete? Is a
I got an
Fitbit?
iWatch.
Everyone's got an iWatch, right?
iWatch, yeah. So I'm thinking about it. It doesn't have the call feature, but beam me up Scotty thing. But I think it really does come to, and I think IGEL, hopefully, at least from what I'm seeing, we kind of get that. The user experience has to be key.
So if here's a fun question for the panel, right? So if you,
I want to answer this. Can I give my 2 cents on this one, Pete?
yeah, go for it, Doug.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I have a great story about Pete and his Apple Watch, but I won't tell it. We don't have time for it, and Pete knows what it is. It's a great story. Yes. But I think it's interesting when Carl brings up the operating system, because DOS is what? It's a disk operating system. What was it there to do? I/O. That was what it was. Windows came in, and like Carl said, it layered the workspace on top of it. Windows 95 was an interesting operating system because what it gave us was a workspace. It gave us, before Windows, we had Windows 3.1 if you wanted some sort of GUI interface. At that point, you went to the application, you clicked the application, you opened it up, and then you went and found your data. Your desktop was filled with nothing but icons, sort of like iOS, to be honest with you, but that's a different argument. From there, we were given a desktop. Now, if you look at your desktop, it's probably icons everywhere. You click your data, and then it opens up the applications, right? That's what we have today. But it was also a personal computer. It was for a one-to-one relationship. When Windows 95 was built, there was no internet. I mean, it was somewhat there, but it wasn't anything like we know it today. And nobody had an idea that would be like what we have it today. It was a computer for the individual, right? Then over the past 25 years, Microsoft has sort of patched it every Tuesday, retrofitted it every couple of years, and tried to turn this operating system that was built many years ago with this interface that was designed many years ago into something that's modern. Today, the world's changed considerably. If we're doing, Citrix, or you're running POS, if you're a retailer or manufacturer, what have you, a doctor's, healthcare, a big giant personal computer is probably the last thing you would ever design for that actual endpoint, right? And this is what I find so beautiful about IGEL. And this is one of the reasons I joined, and this is one of the reasons that over the years, I've still been impressed and even amazed by what we can accomplish. Because yes, we are an operating system. We do the I/O and we do it really well. We also do it securely too, by design. It wasn't, okay, let's take this and let's make it secure. No, it was secure by design. It's read-only memory, or the operating system runs in memory. It's read-only. You can have a virus reboot. It's all gone if you can even get one in the first place, right? But it's like Chris and Carl mentioned, we have all these integrations with all these third parties. That's great. That's fine. That's probably most of what you need. But we also have something called custom partitions, which really need a better name for that. But custom partitions is one of the most valuable and most powerful features of the operating system, which allows us to, within our secure environment, within our secure operating system, install third-party, build our own applications or package our own applications, let's say Zoom, for example, and run it locally on that operating system. We have customers that don't even use a third party, don't use Citrix or Remote, don't use Citrix or Microsoft or VMware or whatever. They run everything locally, right? And sometimes, of course, you want something to be remote and something to be local. So at the end of the day, what we're able to do, to give you is a true operating system with that flexibility that Windows 95 gave you, that desktop, that feeling, that those icons, what have you, but also have it, one, secure, two, have the integrations for the what you're using, from your printer solutions to your monitoring to your remoting, but also allow you to layer in on top of that in an easy to manage, centrally deployed fashion and secure those applications that must and should be run local. At the end of the day, it's really a modern operating system. And when I joined IGEL, that's what I started calling it. It was a modern operating system, not a one designed, 25 years ago. So nothing against Windows. I love Windows. But that's sort of my take, and that's my nutshell on what the heck this operating system is that IGEL sells.
So Doug, that's awesome insight, and it's funny, we're all dating ourselves, and as we talk about the journey of Windows, but if you look at Windows 10, Windows 10 to date, and I haven't run my stats in about a week now, so they might be a little out of date, but the last time I checked, they've had 559 builds across 11 versions of Windows 10. So the big question the audience needs to think about is, why Windows at the endpoint? What's your take on that?
I mean, some people, it comes down to use case. I mean, yeah, some people can run Windows on an endpoint. Maybe if you take away my Windows, or I use a Mac, but if you take away that, I'd be angry because I need that. I want it, right? I'm going to be on an airplane, whatever. Although today's argument, you don't necessarily need that because I got bandwidth everywhere. But a vast majority of your users within a corporation today do not need Windows. It's extremely expensive. It's expensive to secure. It's expensive to manage, right? And as you mentioned, all those different operating system updates, right? At IGEL, it'd be interesting to see how many we've had, since we've had a lot too. But the difference is that you can download, you can go to our management tool, click a button, it downloads it to our management tool, then you install it out everywhere. I did a podcast a couple years ago with a lady that runs one of her bigger customers. They have 5,000 locations across the globe. And I asked her, what was it, what's it like to update all these devices all over the globe? And she goes, I've never had a failure in 5 years. I was like, what? She goes, I've never had a machine fail update. I was like, that's insane. So, it's easy to deploy, easy to manage, and you can update these things centrally. So Windows is just, it's a great OS, but it's just not a modern
It's
OS.
actually, I would argue, I'd counter that a little, Doug. I agree with you. I would say, though, Windows fundamentally, just maybe through just brute force, is a great workspace. I don't know if it's a great OS, honestly. I think we're all using it, but but if we look at, Pete, to your other point though, and it's interesting because we can contrast Apple to Microsoft, and again, we're reading tea leaves here. I have no confirmation or information from Microsoft, but Apple is always focused on the device, sort of independent of the network, right? They've never really been a strong push into the enterprise. I mean, they put out servers, every so often they'll dip their toe in making servers and stuff like that. That's not really their business. And even with cloud, Apple's cloud play is not it's not an enterprise cloud play, right? Microsoft, to me, what I see and what I saw when they made this announcement in 2019 is Microsoft realizes that, the future of their business is around delivering this, your WVD, and I don't love that name either, but I'm assuming they'll rebrand at some point, but delivering your workspace wherever you are. And they're going to dedicate resources to doing that, improving that experience and focusing on that. And I do wonder a bit that, in Microsoft's, like their long-term future, how much are they really focused on having to stay in the operating system market for the endpoint? They made an announcement with Windows 10, which they may walk back eventually, but when Windows 10 came out, they said, hey, this is the last Windows we're going to put out. And I thought, holy cow. And maybe I use a more stronger word than that, but I thought, because Windows and the operating system has been a cash cow for Microsoft, and every X number of years when they refresh it, they make a ton of money. on selling it to everybody and upping the licensing and so on and so forth. So Microsoft suddenly said, hey, we're going to just put this out there. You pay maintenance, you're going to get the updates. We're not putting out another big, Windows 11, as it were. I thought, well, how are they going to replace that income stream? Where are they focused, right? Because the money and the focus go hand in hand. Then they said, and then 2019 they said, and we're going to put, WBD, you're going to give your entire workspace in the cloud. And I thought, oh, okay, aha, now I get it, right? Microsoft is saying, they realize that the future of compute, I think both consumer and business and enterprise, is in the cloud and providing these as services, on a subscription level. I think there's economic reasons why that makes sense as well. And then some way Microsoft kind of can say to themselves, we don't really care what runs on the endpoint so much, as long as it can access WWD. Now, interestingly enough, and I'll wrap on this, I feel like that suspicion got confirmed, and I had not yet joined IGEL yet, when one of the first endpoints they certified from WWD was what, Doug Brown? Or anyone?
IGEL.
IGEL.
Yeah.
And I thought, holy cow, again.
Yeah,
Hey, so
Windows is really an API, right? At the end of the day, it's three things. It's an IO and an API. So if you have legacy applications, we'll run it, of course, on the API, but let that API be in the cloud, right? Then you don't have to manage those things. As at IGEL, we actually say, I love this when, I think it was a marketing thing a while ago, but we love Windows in the cloud, right? And I agree with that. I really honestly do, because I'm a Citrix guy. My whole life has been run stuff remotely.
Yep.
So it makes more sense.
All right, so here's a fun question for the panel, because it's kind of tagging on to this conversation and it came from the audience. But there's a lot of talk about using IGEL as our endpoint, and I truly believe that the endpoint needs to be as simple as possible, because if your users aren't happy, guess what fails? Your projects, right? But the question came up about, hey, you still got to manage the OS in the back end, and you have IGEL on the front end. What level of management does that cause? And I would argue it's very little management, right? And there's another question around OS updates and how they're driven, and I would say that's a pro of IGEL. IGEL is constantly updating the OS, but if anybody's a customer, they can attest to this. It's simple to update the OS. It's a drag and drop, done. So Doug, any comments on the management based on some of your interactions with the communities, and what level of management it takes to have IGEL in the enterprise?
Well, I think Chris should definitely answer this one too. Management is quite simple. I'll refer back to this podcast I did with this lady that runs this big giant company. They make sunglasses, and you guys have all probably been to one of these sunglass huts all over the world. I call it what it is. Anyway, they have all these devices, all these locations. And I asked her, I said, I hear that you have only one admin for this entire location. And she came back and I said, is this true? And she said, no, you're wrong. I was like, well, how many do you have? She goes, half a person. This is actually what she said. And I was like, well, what do you mean? How do you have a half a person? He said, well, we never really check it. It's more automation, where we set up the workflows. We say, okay, if you're in this location, you get this. If you're this type of person, you get this. Right? And then when we bring up a new store, or if there's a problem, or when they boot up, they pull down that configuration if they don't already have it, and it's done. We don't have to manage it. We configure it, and it works. Versus management. And this is what I loved when she said it's automation. It's not management. Management means you have a bunch of stuff to do and a bunch of people to do it. With IGEL, you're not necessarily doing that. And they're a prime example of that. Chris, what's your view on that?
Two quick notes on that, because I think it's a great point. If you'd like to see, she was interviewed. So if you go to the IGEL YouTube channel and just look for Chantel Comberger, you will see the interview when she discussed that. I believe they had over 7,000 locations, and there's about 2 devices per location. So it was between 13 and 14,000 devices that were being managed. And again, it was just, it was Chantel. I mean, it was one person on our team, and it did not take all their time to do that. It's pretty remarkable.
I actually followed up with it because I was very curious. As I started work I was covering federal when I first started here, and began to work with a very large federal account that would be expanding to about the same number or greater. And I got them on the phone, and I was like, walk me through, help me understand sort of how you got to that 1/4 person or whatever it was, half a person. And a big part, we haven't really talked about it, but IGEL has a REST API as well that's built into our UMS management console piece. And we've had some, just looking back over this year, I was thinking about one of the analytics vendors that it's now integrated control up, they actually use our custom partition feature to initially kind of create a tool that could be installed on the device through a firmware update, essentially. And then from their management console, they could actually send certain commands through our UMS server down to the device and actually do that. And we've been leveraging that same sort of integration with some work we're doing with VMware, which I think you'll hear about. I'm going to shamelessly plug Brian Madden. I know he's coming up with you, Pete, but Doug's got him tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern, talk about some of the stuff there. So hopefully I didn't break a rule here with your webinar, but the point is we've got a lot going on there, and so that has allowed, that REST API has allowed folks to have, instead of having an army managing devices, they can reduce that greatly. And there's a bunch you can do to automate registering devices, licensing them, updating them, all kinds of things, and that basically comes down to reduce workload on managing IGEL in the wild. So
Awesome. All right. So
Only going to get better as the years go. Or I hear next year we're going to have a bunch of more integration or more.
Honestly, you're preparing for this.
How we're able to manage it remotely.
Yeah, I mean, we could probably, I was looking at this, we could probably have a slide deck that's 100 plus slides long of all the things just this year alone that has happened within the IGEL OS, the UMS, and on our cloud gateway, all those things combined. And we haven't really even talked too much about the IGEL Ready program, which got launched in July. Carl had a slide earlier on that, but so much has been happening from the innovation piece. I think that's what a lot of people have been excited about, because we're not just stuck. You know, we're moving quickly on a lot of things. So
Very fast.
cool. So
I think we're blowing away your agenda, aren't we?
yeah, no, this is great
so.
though. So, but we're coming at the top of the hour, so last final kind of conversation as we go into the end cap. But if we're going to look forward to anything in 2021 from IGEL, anything we should keep an eye out for, and I'll someone did ask about a certain support for a certain device, and around the Raspberry Pi, anything we can we can look forward to in looking at IGEL, web UI, things like that.
I'm going to go with my Top Gun reference. I got this jacket from Jet Airs, and I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. So, but I'll let Doug speak to maybe, or Carl, about anything we can comment on that.
There was something Jed did. You mentioned our meetups, and we do meetups once a month within that. Not as cool as yours, but we try. And Jed said something about stay tuned till the end of the year, beginning of next year, and we'll have more information. So I cannot confirm nor deny, but Jed gave us that bit.
Cool. And any updates on you guys were big on this the Believe kind of, I'll call it the Believe movement. What came out of that, and are you guys still kind of running with it? And Chris, you got the shirt on. Is that what was kind of the net result of that? I loved it. I think it's a great movement. I think a lot of folks who are customers on this call hopefully got a t-shirt, and are there still t-shirts available?
Yeah. So the
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was gonna say, so yeah, the Believe, it was pretty cool. There's, in marketing, sometimes you hope for that organic kind of thing that happens, right? Where people, your customers, your partners, attach to a message and internalize it. And we saw that with Believe. So for those of you who don't know, at the beginning of the year, Jed Ayers, our CEO, provided all of us at IGEL a t-shirt that says Believe. It's a word that's a lot of meaning for Jed. And I think it was meaning for all of us at IGEL in terms of our culture. The word believe has a lot of different meanings, but I think the meaning that Jed intended when he gave us that shirt was that to believe in something is to have, a firm conviction as to the goodness, the efficacy or the ability of someone or something. I think Jed was essentially saying, hey, I have a very firm conviction into the goodness, the ability, the efficacy of all of you. We had some guests at our kickoff, and we gave them Believe shirts as well. And one of those guests posted a picture up on social media, I think on LinkedIn, wearing her Believe shirt and talking about that message. And it sort of sparked this whole, I want to say revolution, maybe that's too strong a word, but I'm marketing. I'm prone to, go to the big words, but people started posting their Believe shirts up. So we turned it into a program where you can go to igel.com/believe, request a shirt. We'll send one out to you. They're really nice shirts. We didn't cheap out on the shirts because we're giving them away for free. We bought really nice brushed cotton shirts. We also give $1 to charity every time someone gets one of those shirts and posts a picture of themselves wearing it on social media. So this year we've given away over 1,000 shirts. It started out small. We've done, other than mentioning it on things like podcasts, we don't like actively promote it. And we've given away over 1,000 shirts, $1,000 to charity. We're still going strong. I think we were low on shirts, so we'll warn you, if you request a shirt now, you may or may not get it by Christmas. But I do encourage you to do so. Go get it. Go request one of the Believe shirts. And it was just great. It's great to see people wearing them. We sponsor V-Mugs. We've seen folks jump to V-Mugs wearing the Believe shirts. It really speaks a bit to, I think, the culture of IGEL, and we didn't really discuss it much today, but the IGEL is a very unique company. We're a smaller tech company. We have tremendous leadership, and there's a really strong culture in IGEL around this concept of the servant heart and how we can help one another and work together. I work at IGEL. I can attest that it is absolutely, ingrained in the core of who we all are. And Believe Shirt is just one of those examples.
Nice.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that as far as when it became viral. So at the beginning of our Disrupt conference at the beginning of the year, our keynote speaker was a guy, the Iron Cowboy, who did 50 marathons in 50 Ironmans, in 50 states in 50 days. Guy is a beast, and shared his story. And in Munich, we all got these shirts, and it wasn't long after that when it was Scott Manchester, who was the program director for WED. I'm sure I butchered that title at the time, but his wife was a nurse and worked in a healthcare facility out in Seattle area, generally speaking, where we first started to see COVID outbreak here in America. And she was called in, and then she kind of threw this on and posted it, and that kind of is where it started. And it sort of went viral there. We saw obviously quite a bit of our healthcare customers have to, change and just change the way they work. It impacted quite a bit. And there's some great stories that were posted. We actually won a Citrix. I can't remember exactly what it was. There was a contest, right? And one of our customers, Carl, was involved with that project. They shared their story, and it was really they looked around. They had all these old machines, and they repurposed them with IGEL and sent them home for their users. It was a great story to access Citrix. So, anyways, so yeah, it's been great to be part of that.
Yeah, and I loved it, and I got my T-shirt. So, all right, so we're coming top of the hour. I know, Doug, you're probably busy, so we want to make sure we don't take too much more of your time. But again, hey, audience, head over to bronco.XenTegra.com. One of the things I'll encourage you to do is to get one of our free micro assessments, and we can help you understand where IGEL can fit into your end user compute environment. So we do one for Citrix and one for VMware, and part of that we can assess your endpoints and really help you understand where IGEL can fit in. So again, some calls to action. If you want to dig deeper, let us know. I saw a lot of great questions, stuff we couldn't answer necessarily today, but we'll definitely follow up. We can dig deeper. We can show you a demo. I have IGEL on these all the time. We present different topics, and Doug, that begs the question, would you come back early next year and maybe we continue this conversation? Because I think we could go for another hour, guys. What do you think?
As long as you bring them on, Carl's always a hoot to do anything with, and
Yeah.
Chris is great too. If I could say just one thing for 1 minute, if you guys are listening, if you're teching, you want to try IGEL, please do. Head over to igelcommunity.com, go to the training. There's a nice little white paper that I wrote. It'll literally in an hour walk you through step by step how to install everything, how to download the free trial and everything. So just try that out, join the community. You'll have it up and running, and then you'll start, you start loving it, to be honest with you.
And just for the FYI, I put the link into the chat window, so definitely click on that. Sign up today. Doug did a great job writing that guide. I give it out all the time, Doug. It's a great guide, and I know you're constantly updating it too, right?
I need to update. I have it on my to-do list for December. Usually in Germany, they give you 30 days vacation. I don't know what to do with 30 days vacation, so I always took December off and wrote the guide, but now I have a bunch of other stuff to do, so hopefully it'll get updated. But it's up to date. You won't have there's nothing that doesn't work in it, but there might be a screenshot that looks different.
Nice. Cool. So hey, thank you, Doug, for joining us today. Thank you, Chris, for joining us today. Any final words from you, Chris?
I was going to say, you mentioned it earlier, but Andy has kicked off a new podcast coming up here with IGEL. We've got our first one that's going to be recorded, I think, in a week or so. Doug Brown is a guest coming up on there. We've got a few others that are lined up, so look forward to getting that series kicked off here in December, and that'll be a weekly, I think, if not sure. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm the producer. So, and then finally, Carl, any final words on your side?
No, I mean, look, I think that as we move into 2021, we're going to see continued change. There's that expression that it takes 6 weeks to change a habit. We've had, 9 months of everyone working from home. So I think we've all kind of gotten into understanding what that's about. So, I'm looking forward to getting out of COVID, honestly. But I do think that the change that was accelerated by COVID is going to be very interesting for this industry. And it was, what if we've been talking about, work from anywhere and end users competing forever. And this was, we finally got, I feel like it was an action movie, right? Where the guy's been practicing jujitsu all those years and finally has to use his jujitsu. So this year, Doug got to break out the jujitsu, as did all of us. And I'm really honored to be part of this industry and this segment of the industry for what we were able to do. Looking forward to next year.
Yeah, me too. So, all right, with that, well, thank you guys for joining me. I'm definitely I want to get you guys back on early next year. So keep an eye on your emails. And always a pleasure to have you guys. And Doug, I miss you, man. I miss hanging out. So hopefully we can get rid of COVID and hang out.
We're gonna go big when we see each other. We're going big.
Yeah. So if you guys want to know more about XenTegra, XenTegra.com, and check us out. And we will be following up with a lot of great action items. And I will announce the winners of the prizes next week. So join me next week with Nutanix and Steve Kaplan, the ROI ninja, I like to call him. The guy is a genius when it comes to TCO and ROI. So anyway, with that, I'm going to say thanks for joining. And as I always say, see you all on the flip side and look forward to seeing you guys in the future. And if I don't see any of you, happy holidays. So
happy holidays. Thanks, Pete.
Take care.
Thank you.